I'm going to pull this over on YouTube.
You heading down to Greenville?
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. We're on YouTube, and we are also on Zoom. I'll hit the record to the cloud. All right, we're recording, and we're on YouTube. Welcome, everybody. Excited to cover today's information. Team building tip. I just pulled in to charge my car here, so I figure it's a good time to do a Zoom, and let's see if I can finish before the car is done charging. It was empty, so it's probably got 25 minutes of charging or 20 minutes to do, but we'll see what we can do. Hey, listen, team building tip 2-4-25. This is team building tip leverage. That's what I want to talk about, but this is where your business model and the fact that you can build a team gives you something that you just can't have outside of a team. You know, in business, it's called inputs and outputs. If you ask somebody to gauge their business, any consultant would say, well, let's look at your inputs that create the outputs. What are your inputs that you have to put in to create the output? Sales calls, phone calls, customers walk in your restaurant. What are the inputs to create the output? You know, are you advertising? How many phone calls are you making? How many conversations you having? So if you know that for every, like I always say, for every 40 business owner conversations you have where they're engaged with you, what you're doing, you probably get an application, unless you're not doing it real well, or unless you're not relating with the person, unless you're not doing it local, unless you're using things that people put their hands up and say, no, not interested, unless you're coming across as salesy. You know, there's effectiveness, right? You know, I'm not a very good cook. When I'm cooking on the barbecue, I don't know if my chicken's done or not till I pull out a knife and fork and cut into it. I don't have enough experience. Sometimes I burn it, sometimes it's raw. We've had to microwave David's barbecue many times because we take it off before it's cooked. So that doesn't mean barbecuing doesn't work. That means I don't know yet how to barbecue. Right? Sometimes I just get it right. It's a barbecue. Well, guess what? Some of you are making calls. You're doing it more and more, but you're doing it incorrectly. Or you're approaching people the same way, expecting it to be different, and it's not different, and you're not necessarily following the training. We always say identify with them at the very beginning. You know, you don't know me directly, but I just saw your truck. Or you don't know me directly, but I was referred you by. You don't know me directly, but I just saw your card at. You don't know me directly, but we're also chamber members. You don't know me directly, but you have to relate with them. If you don't relate with them, it's like, bye. Telemarketer, bye. You may get some yeses, but we say relate with every call. And I listen to people call, they don't relate. It's like, I don't know what part of that is the hardest to understand, but to not do it means you want to waste time. To not do it means you want to waste time. Input equals output. So proper inputs will give you good outputs. Well, why am I saying all this? Because if you know that for every 40 business owner conversations, you should get an application, for every 80, you should get a funding then, because 1 out of 2 should fund. Then to make more money, you got to increase your input. You got to increase the conversations, right? And you go, man, I should be having 100, 200 conversations a day or 400, 500 a day. And it starts to get very difficult to manage that over a long period of time. So David Allen Capital said, hey, I understand. I don't want to have 400 conversations a day, but yet I want to make 40 grand a month. I don't want to have 800 conversations a day, but I want to make 100 grand a month. So let's build a compensation plan that has something built into it called leverage input. So right now we have about, I don't know the exact number. Let's just say it's 300 applications a day. I'm not talking to those people, but yet I've got 300 applications coming in a day in my company that I started, just me in my basement with $100. And there's 300 applications a day. Why? Because it's leverage. So your ability to build a team and to build it for free gives you leverage, because every person you recruit, you make, let's just say 25%, you make 10 to 50, but you make 25% of what they make, or just call it 1% of the funding. So for every person you recruit, you don't make 4%, but you make 1% about on average. So if you recruit 10 people and they all have 10 conversations a day, your company is having 100 conversations a day. You're not, but your company is. Now you make a smaller margin, but you have leverage of activity. If those 10 all recruit 10 and they're all having 10, now you got 100 agents on your second level, 10 on your first. And if they're all having 10 conversations a day, you're having 1,000 conversations a day. Is it okay that you only make 0.25% or 0.5% of the fundings? You got 1,000 conversations a day. And if those 10 all refer 10, now you have 10,000 agents on your third level. Now, obviously, it doesn't grow this way, but I've got over 70,000 agents in my team, and I started with just me. And maybe there's only 7,500 who are active, but that's how you end up. And maybe only 700 of those are really active. And that's why we're increasing our learning management software to increase the leverage, the quality of the leverage. So if you have recruited 10 people, but none of them do anything, do you have leverage yet? No, you actually have a time sucker. You have something that's going to take time from you. You don't have anything that's going to give you leverage. You have something that's taking leverage. So you want to be very discriminatory on who you recruit, that they exhibit the right behaviors. You don't recruit people who don't want to work. You don't recruit people, and I don't mean discriminatory based on race, gender, religion, age, any of that type of stuff. I'm talking about efforts, ambition, hunger, right? If someone doesn't have hunger, they waste your time. If someone doesn't have ambition, they waste your time. If someone is not coachable, they waste your time. If someone is not willing to do what an independent agent must do, they waste your time. So learn that on the front end and now go with leverage. So inputs, increase your input tenfold to increase your output. Well, that's hard to do when you're already putting in a lot of time. Now, you can add more conversations yourself. We talked about it on yesterday's leadership call, things we can all do to increase our effectiveness. And maybe you could do advertising, and maybe you could do telemarketing legally, and maybe you can go to associations and join BNI groups and canvas local markets and dominate your local territory and build relationships with 100 banks nationwide and have 100 bank managers who know you by first name, who refer you every one of the people they have to say no to. Maybe that's your angle. I don't know your angle, but those are all leverage referral partnerships, right? But there's nothing better to drive your income than the team leverage. They are built-in referral partners who have financial incentive to build their own teams and build their organization. So if I'm you, and I'm not, but if I'm you, I'm saying, how do I increase my active personally enrolled agents? Well, it usually means replace some of them. It doesn't mean replace, but add to them. You don't have to kick people out, but you can add to them. If you've recruited 10 people and you watch them, and I have an agent who just got started yesterday, sent me a text this morning, check it out. And he's got his first loan application in and he's all excited. And I said, that's awesome. Congratulations. And I got another one now too. A second one that's interested already. He's been with us since yesterday. 2 applications. Now, other people will join and they'll be here 6 months and not have an application. I can't. And it may be that he happened to talk to the right people at the right time, right? It may have nothing to do with effort. You have other people who have a lot of effort, don't have applications, but leverage happens with quantity. So you increase the quantity. If I said to you, postcards work, and I've got postcards with me. I was just when I stopped here to charge, I put a postcard in the men's room on top of the Purell gel where you wash your hands. I put one of my postcards there. People say, why would you do that? Well, one time I stopped to get lunch meat at a Meijer's and I put a postcard in a van some construction van, and they got $150,000. And it was an employee driving the van, called his owner, said, "Hey, someone left this card. Do we need money?" And the guy called me an hour later, and he got 150 grand from leaving a card on a windshield. I'm not saying you should count on that, but I don't have a problem leaving a card everywhere I go. It's a little billboard. Probably gets thrown away 90% of the time, 95% of the time. But hey, a seed not in the ground, if I take my apple seeds and I throw them in the trash can, odds are they're not going to become a tree. If I throw that apple on the side of the road, 1 out of every 1,000 of those might actually become a tree. And the same thing for you. So if I said postcards work, but you got to you send out 300, you go, it didn't work. I sent out 300 cards and I didn't get any applications. Well, maybe your input wasn't high enough. Maybe you need 30,000 cards to get a return on investment. Maybe you got to invest 10 grand into postcards. Now, I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying, do you see where input versus output? Input always creates output if you do enough of an input. It always works. Some people quit this business because they had 4 business owner conversations and no one applied for funding, and they think they did enough input. And we say it's going to take 40 on average before you get an application, and they quit after 4. So same with recruits. Some people recruit 3 people and they go, "Yeah, I recruited 3. They said they're going to do it and didn't do anything. I'm just not going to recruit anymore." Okay. You don't have to. But I got a client last month, renewal, and I made 3 times as much in overrides. And most of the people I've recruited have done nothing. But I'm not concerned about most. I'm concerned about the ones who do something. And they build a team who does do something, right? Most people don't do anything they put their minds to. So don't stop because you recruited 3 and they didn't do anything. They're not losing money here. If they had to spend 5 grand and you made 3 of that 5 and you're feeling guilty because you made 9 grand on 3 friends putting in 5 grand, I get it. I know that because I live that. I get why you'd want to stop recruiting. You don't want to take people's 5 grand, but we're free for this reason alone. So you never feel guilty about recruiting. But if some of you get apathetic and don't build a team, employ leverage, and you will forever have to work more and 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 more hours just to get your income. If you want to make $250,000 a year here, just by getting clients, you're going to have to get a lot of clients. You can do it, but it's a lot easier to hit the RVP rank and make $250,000 in overrides. And you don't have to do it over and over and over again. And I'm going to end by saying this. You could spend a year writing a book that other people could write in 2 weeks. But by taking a year to write it, you've got it drilled down. Every little paragraph took you a day to write because you wanted to make sure it wasn't just the people you sold it to, but it's so good they tell everyone about it. It's so good they tell everyone they know about it, and you get the second level referrals and third and fourth. You get viral referrals because you took a year to write the book. You made a remarkable product. It wasn't just good to who you promote it to. It promotes itself. It's so remarkable. But it may take you a year. It's a lot of input of time. Well, guess what? It may take you a year to find your 10. And you may have to recruit 5 people a month for a year and have 60 you've recruited before you find your 10. But when you have your 10, you may be making $250,000 a year in overrides on those 10. And is it okay that it take you a year, even 2 years? But you recruited 60, or are you going to stop? And maybe the way you're recruiting, you've got to recruit 120 because you're not even talking to the people you recruit. You're just throwing mud against the wall and you're hoping by all means someone joins. That's not the right way. Do it the right way. Use our system. Put them through the questions. Make sure they're interested. Make sure they want to help business clients. They want to serve business owners. Make sure they have the courage and the willingness or the coachability to do it. Make sure they're going to go through the training. I had another agent join, not frontline to me, but joined under someone and called me, wanted help, didn't know who their enroller was, answered an ad in a newspaper, and couldn't get their enroller on the phone. and had 2 applications come in, get approved, and called me going off on me that we didn't have monthly payments. What type of company are you that you don't have monthly payment? It's ludicrous. Well, what's ludicrous is when we talked on the phone, I said, make sure you watch the funding training because you want to understand our funding before you're talking to clients. What's ludicrous is you ignored that advice of the CEO of the company who's funded thousands of businesses, hundreds of millions of dollars have come through our company, and he encouraged you to watch an hour-long training, and it was ludicrous that you chose not to, and then you call and rip him. So the reality is coachability is not something you should take lightly, nor I. Now, we corrected the situation. They recognize their issue. They're going to watch it again, and they're going to then. And you know what? Maybe she'll become or he'll become a great agent. I don't want to, you know, pull the curtain back on the person. But you see what type you're going to have that. And it's not even someone I enrolled because their enroller didn't encourage. But even when you do, even when you tell them, make sure you get trained, doesn't mean they will. Who cares? You keep going, you keep going, you keep going, you keep going, and you have leverage. In 5 years from now, you look back, you might have 800 to 1,000 active people in your team because 8,000 have joined, and you got 800 to 1,000 who are active, and you got 2 applications coming in a day and 5 new recruits per person every month. You're adding 4,000 people to your group every month. And you got thousands of applications coming in monthly, and you're only making 1/8 of a percentage of the funding, but you're doing millions of funding every month. That's called leverage. That's business ownership. That's what you're here for. That's what our pay plan allows you to do, but it doesn't for people who have the ability but don't recruit. Now, I want to tell you, I'm considering something where we limit the amount of people. I'm just considering this, limiting the amount of people an individual can recruit so that you get a little more discriminatory on who you recruit. Maybe there is a limit per week or per month. Just considering it. Maybe you can only recruit 3 a week. So they better be the right 3. And when they're gone, they're gone. Or maybe you can only recruit 3 this month. Maybe you can only recruit, we only allow 1,000 reps to join our business this month. And if you get 50 of them, great, good for you. I don't know. I'm just considering how to create a little more of a reason for people to recruit quality, not just quantity. Because I'm seeing it all around. People who recruit quality do very well. People who recruit quantity stumble into a deal once in a while, but those people usually leave. There's no culture they're a part of. So all of you have the opportunity to employ leverage where you can have 1,000 inputs of applications a day without having to talk to them all yourself. But you got to build the team. Got to build the team. That's all I want to talk about today. Leverage. It's on your side. Upline referral script. Check it out. 3-way calls. Check it out. It's how you help a person move forward. I'll end with this quote. I'm not fearless. I don't stand here fearless as I look at the road ahead of me. I stand here fearless because I look at the road behind me. That came from the Matrix, something along those lines. And what that means is what? You've gone through so much. You've already experienced so much. The road ahead is not scary. If you're scared about making calls to business owners, you just have not made enough calls. The road behind you isn't done yet. You haven't paved that road yet. You haven't traveled the road yet. You're still concerned about how you might be received in the marketplace because you haven't traveled the path yet. Start traveling the path. Travel the path. Travel the path. The business owners travel the paths of recruiting. I've recruited people who've gone on to make $100 million in this industry. I've recruited people who've gone on to make 0. A lot more have made 0. I've recruited people who make 100 grand a year and still do, and you wouldn't even know their names, and they're living a great life, but they're not tops of companies. They're just average 100 grand a year people, and their residual income. I know people right now, I could name many people making 70,000 a year and haven't talked to a customer or an agent in 6 years. It makes 70 grand a year in overrides. And people that I've recruited or people in my teams. And you know what? When you have that, you don't fear the road ahead of what if that next recruit doesn't do anything. You don't fear the road ahead because you're looking back at all the success that you've created and you've played a part, the butterfly effect. Start having more conversations with business owners and have more conversations with agents. This is a team building tip. Build your leverage, build your leverage, build your leverage. Some will, some won't. So what? It's not your responsibility to make sure they're successful. It's your responsibility to be their tour guide, make sure they see the trainings, make sure they understand, and make sure you're there to help them with three-way calls, conference calls with the client, conference calls with new agent. Make sure you're there to support them. And as long as you're doing that, you're going to have a leverage team that grows depth away from you. I'm going to check the comments here, and then we're done. My car has been charged for a while. I see Morgan's on that Relevate question. I haven't heard anything about that. So I would call Relevate. Not sure about that. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Rock and roll. Let's go build our leverage. God bless you all. Appreciate you all. We'll see you tomorrow on the funding call with Wade Cordell.